Good evening, everyone. Would like to welcome everyone to the August 17th City of Lebanon Plan Commission meeting. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, Kelly, please.
Okay. Ashley Paddock. Here. John Lastly.
Here.
Kevin Krulik.
Here.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Jeremy Lawler. Absent. Brian Tandy.
Here.
Dan Bashor.
Here.
Lori Gross. Here.
Okay, we have an approval of the minutes. Is that right, Kelly? We have to do that tonight, right?
Yes.
You have them, they're here, yeah, July's meeting.
Yeah.
I'd entertain a motion for that.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as written.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the July minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Minutes passed. Old business. Any members have anything on old business? Being none, we'll go to new business. We'll start out with docket 20-28, Pratt Storage LLC requesting development plan approval to construct an additional storage unit on the property located at 1005 Indianapolis Road. The property is zoned SF, single-family residential in the Interstate Overlay District. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Just walk through some of the highlights of this project for you here. A little bit of the history first. As Mr. Campbell mentioned, the property is zoned SF single-family. It's in part of the area that we annexed to the city about 13 years ago. It was brought in all under just the SF zoning classification, which created, in this case, a non-conforming use. They did clear that up in January of this year. They got a variance of use that allowed them to expand existing self-storage facilities within the SF district. So they have cleared up the use early this year. And then at the August 3rd meeting, they also did get a handful of variances. There's 5 of them related to this project specifically. To allow metal building construction, to allow relief from the building-based landscaping requirement, relief from parking area curbing requirements, the corridor buffer requirements of the overlay district, and then street trees. So that kind of brings us up to speed on the background of the project. They are proposing, they just pulled the site plan up, an additional 7,000 square foot building. This is a climate-controlled self-storage building. For those of you that are familiar with this property, there was a structure that sat here that was torn down over the last year or two to make way for this project. As you see to the north and east of this building, there are several existing buildings that already exist on this property, and this really takes it to the point where you're essentially built out the property with everything that could be possible here. So you kind of see here, there is an existing drive going north-south that goes to the back towards the existing buildings, and they're providing essentially a loop drive here that allows access to this building, and they are adding per ordinance requirements an additional 4 parking spaces here to allow their customers ability to park their cars while they're accessing their facilities here. So just walking through, this was reviewed by the Technical Advisory Committee at a meeting last month, and I provided some of the summary of that meeting there in the staff report. Probably the most significant, I guess, issue remaining is stormwater and drainage. I know they're working through some details there and getting those worked out, exactly where the outfall is located and whether it's in good condition and all that good stuff. I know we'll let the applicant, and may have some updates on that since that meeting. But I know that's one of the primary issues that's still remaining, is to get the drainage figured out here. In terms of development standards, I've provided a summary of that in your staff report. And parking requirements, as I mentioned, they have met the parking requirement of the ordinance for self-storage facilities, which is 3 spaces plus 1 space for each 75 units. So they have 4 required, and they did provide 4. In terms of lighting, they have not proposed any additional lighting as part of this project, so there's nothing to review there. Landscaping, let me pull up the landscape plan for you. This is a different file here, so give me a second. This may take a second to load. Gotta let the network catch up to the file here. So they have provided a landscape plan that shows parking lot perimeter landscaping on the south side of the parking area. As this loads up, I'll show you that. Oh, it must be at the end. And here we go. So this shows you the landscape plan. They have provided the tree and shrub requirement along the south side of the building, the south side of the parking area that you see here. And then they provided some evergreen plantings on the west side. If you're familiar with this property, the 100 East is significantly higher than this property. You can see the contours here on the site plan, so it drops down into this property quite a bit. So we did suggest that the evergreens would probably be the most efficient and effective landscaping treatment along this side of the building, because you're not going to see much of the building from where the road is anyway. So providing the evergreen plantings here and then on the south side of the building, we felt was the most effective use of the landscape plantings. So that's where they provided those. They did meet all the ordinance requirements when also considering the variances that were approved by the BZA earlier this month. A couple final items. Signage, they haven't proposed any signage as part of this building. And then architectural review, I'll go back to that so you can see that. They did get a variance to allow metal building construction, but you see here the south and north elevations are both stucco, which is considered a masonry material for our ordinance. The east side of the building is where you get the drive-up door, or the overhead doors, the access to the units. So you do have stucco outside of anything that is related to the overhead doors. So the only place there actually is metal siding is on the west elevation, which again I mentioned, that's the elevation that essentially faces the hill that goes up towards the road. So this is not something that's going to be terribly visible on the west side of the building, and they have provided those evergreen plantings. So when considering the variances approved for metal building construction, they have met all of the architectural requirements of our ordinance. So in summary, find my summary page here. Planning staff has found compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance requirements for the subject site and recommends approval of the subject development plan contingent on the following conditions. First is TAC comments. The applicant adequately addresses any remaining City of Lebanon Technical Advisory Committee comments prior to application for any building permits or site improvements. And second, lighting plan. If plans for exterior parking lot lighting are added, the applicant should submit required photometric plans and cut sheets for lighting fixtures to ensure compliance with the UDO. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anyone on the commission have a question for Ben? Not seeing any. We'll let the applicant come up and speak.
Gary Ladd with Ladd Engineering. I just might mention that we did prepare a stormwater report, submitted that to city engineer Christopher Burke and Associates. It was Wednesday or Thursday of last week, so it's in the process.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to speak? You can speak if you'd like.
We just are putting forth a good effort, and it's been a long haul, but it's coming to a conclusion. So we appreciate all your assistance and help.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone would like to speak? Not seeing anyone coming forward, we'll close the public hearing. Now, any else from the commission have a question? If not, we could entertain a motion.
I did have one other item for the
Okay.
record, and that, Mr. Campbell, you pointed this out before the meeting.
Right.
The city standards that were attached to
Right.
the civil plans are actually an old version of the city standards. We just adopted them, just a couple of months ago, new standards. So we'll just need to make sure that we get the updated city standards attached to the plans, but just want to make sure that was on the record, but no big issue there.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve docket number 2028 with the conditions of making sure that the TAC comments in regards to the drainage are taken care of, and then also if the applicant decides to do any lighting, that it is brought to the board as well.
I'll second.
Okay,
Okay.
we have a motion and a second. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Ashley Paddock? Yes. John Leslie?
Yes.
Kevin Krulik?
Yes.
Keith Campbell?
Yes.
Jeremy Law absent. Brian Tandy?
Yes.
Dan Bashar?
Yes.
Lori Gross?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Ben. Okay, going to the next docket. Docket number 20-29. Fisher Construction requesting development plan approval for Project Isle, a new industrial building to be constructed in the Lebanon Business Park. The property is located at the dead end of 904 Edwards Drive. The property is zoned PBI, Planned Business Industrial. Ben?
Very good, thank you, Mr. Campbell. I'll just walk through a little bit of the history on this project as well. Actually, what I'll do is I'm going to pull up the vicinity map so you can get an idea of where we're talking about here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can actually see it. So for those of you who are somewhat familiar with the business park, this is essentially one of the last sites in the park at the far southwest corner. It's the site that you see hatched out right here. This says site. Just to the east of it is Ken's Foods. Just to the north of it is D.S. Smith, and you'll see D.A. Lubricant right here just to the northeast. Our regional detention facility is on this little piece that's kind of to the southwest here of the site. So this is the very back southwest corner of the business park, one of the last sites left in the business park, and it's for the proposed project that's before you tonight. This is a confidential project, thus being called Project Isle. That is going through the process in terms of what we've been doing the last couple of months. This has been in front of the BZA a couple different times. First time was on the July meeting where they requested a building height variance. And I'll let the applicant talk a little bit about their technology, but this is a 160-foot tall building. It is a cold storage warehouse, and they're using a technology that's not very prevalent in the United States right now. There are other facilities that use it, but essentially it's a low oxygen environment, and the racking is it's all robotic and it goes very tall. So I'll let him talk about a little bit about that more. But it's all robotics that retrieve all the materials in there. It's more efficient to go vertical than it is to go horizontal, particularly for something that's refrigerated like this is. So it is a very tall building, but they did get that height variance approved at the July meeting. They did submit then for the development plan approval. And at the August meeting, there were a handful of additional variances that were needed to be approved related to the site. One is parking area curbing. They did request relief from the curbing requirement for the truck and trailer parking area. That's a fairly typical variance request that we see in the business park. Trucks and curbs don't really mesh very well. The second is the drive width. For the truck access drive, again, this is a fairly prevalent request that we see in the business park. Our maximum drive width is 30 feet, and they requested to go larger than that, again, to allow easier access for trucks to and from the site. Third is parking lot perimeter landscaping. Again, this relates to the truck and trailer area. Again, a very prevalent variance we see in the business park. If curbs and trucks don't go well, landscaping trucks don't go well either. So that's one that we often see a lot. And the final one is one that's unique to this site that we haven't seen in a little while, and that's the fact that this site does not actually access a public street. And when we get into the site in a little bit more detail, when Ken's Food was developed, they actually developed across the end of Edwards Drive there and didn't provide any additional public access to this lot. So we did have to approve a variance to allow them to develop this lot without public street access. The way we're intending to handle that, it's underway, is to get a access easement from Ken's Foods. And when we get into the, what took my throat there. When we get into the site in a little more detail, you'll see what I mean with that. But their drive access to the site will actually come off of the truck drive for Ken's Foods. Excuse me. All right. Excuse me. All right, here you see the overall site, the proposed building. They have room for expansion. Edwards Drive, as you see, ends to the northeast of the property. I'm gonna have to go get a drink of water. As you can see, their access will come off of the truck drive or the entrance drive for Ken's Foods because they didn't have access to a public street up here. So this is where, sorry about that. So let's just walk through some of the overall details of the project. This did go to TAC last month, and I provided the summary of those comments here in your staff report. They have already responded to all of the comments that were provided, updated the site plan, and provided response to all of these. So they have all addressed these. In terms of development standards, I have provided a summary of that in the staff report. They have met all of the applicable development standards when you can also considering the variance for the building height. In terms of the parking requirements, they are required to provide 1 space per employee on the largest shift plus 1 space per vehicle used in the operation of the warehouse, which essentially means providing parking for trucks. And they have provided 110 parking spaces, 105 standard, 5 handicap, and then, as you can see here on the site plan, significant trailer parking to the south of the building. In terms of the lighting, they did not provide a lighting plan for this site. Because of the stage of this project, they likely have not selected a lighting contractor yet, so that will be forthcoming. So we did provide in the recommendations just to provide the lighting plan when it was available. Landscape and buffer yards, again, they have met all of the applicable standards. It's a little hard to see that on the site plan just because the site's so big. But I can try to find that. Essentially what they've done is they've met all of our landscaping requirements for the employee parking lot and provided some additional landscaping around the entrance area. And then the truck area is just a paved area that does not include landscaping per the variance request. Again, you got 4 pages for everyone except for because of, here we go. This gives you a quick idea. You can see here the landscaping they provided around the entrance area on the northeast part of the lot. And then as you look at the employee parking area, you'll see the required perimeter parking lot and interior parking lot landscaping has been provided. Signage plan, obviously this is a confidential user, so we don't have signage yet, but they will be providing a signage plan if they choose this site that meets all applicable UDO standards, and they'll be able to have to provide that signage plan at that time for us to review. And architecturally, they have provided architecture of the building. Again, this is a big warehouse that's very, very tall, so there's not necessarily a lot to see in terms of the architecture, but they have met all the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, and keeping in mind that large-scale manufacturing facilities are exempt from a lot of the architectural design standards in 718C5. So staff recommendation, we have recommended that we have found compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance requirements for the subject site. We do recommend approval of the subject development plan contingent on the following conditions. One, that TAC comments, the applicant adequately address any remaining City 11 Technical Advisory Committee comments provided to application for building permits or site improvements. Stormwater approval, the applicant receive formal drainage approval from the City 11 Board of Public Works prior to application for any building permits or site improvements. And 3, the lighting plan, that they provide a lighting standard and photometric plan that adheres to all UDO standards prior to application for any building permits. And 4, the signage plan, that they provide a signage plan that adheres to all applicable UDO standards prior to installation of any signage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anyone on the commission have a question of Ben?
I've got one, Ben. And obviously, I didn't, but what, did you say the 160 as far as the height that was approved here, or it was approved through?
The Board of Zoning Appeals.
The Board of Zoning, okay.
Yeah.
What, just curiosity, what do our fire trucks reach?
So a ladder truck will not reach that high.
Right.
Yeah, so they did get a variance from the state for fire suppression, but essentially this is a low oxygen environment, so there's no chance that a fire could even start in this part of the building because there's not enough oxygen for there to be ignition. I'll let the applicant talk about it a little bit more. He likes talking about it. It's a fun building. What our fire department really looked at was life safety associated with the building. So because it's a low oxygen environment, you have to have certain apparatus before you can go in there. So they just wanted to make sure that they had appropriate access to that part of the building in case there was, in this case, it would be a maintenance worker happened to be in there trying to fix a robot because there aren't people in there regularly. So they did look at all this. They reviewed both the fire suppression requirements. They looked at the life safety and found that everything was adequate. As we all know, there's buildings in downtown Indianapolis that are taller than any fire department ladder can get to anyway.
Sure.
So it's not something that's unique, but they have looked at everything and find everything acceptable.
Just as different around here.
It's, yeah, a little different around here, yeah. We don't have too many buildings this tall right now.
Right.
Okay, anyone else?
What building around here is comparable to that height? I'm just trying to get it into my head.
There isn't.
I guess
In Lebanon, there isn't one.
I guess even the
I'd say the
courthouse.
tallest building we have now is 5 stories tall, which is about 50 to 60 feet. So this is
Almost
3 times
three
taller
times.
than that. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, US cold storage is 80 to 100, so again, it's still about twice that tall, but US cold storage out in the business park is probably the closest we have.
Okay, all right.
3 times higher than the Keaton.
Bigger than, kind of like thinking like the Chase Building in Lafayette, somewhere else.
Any other questions from the commission? Not, we'll let the applicant come up and speak, please.
Gotta wait for it to reload up here again.
Great, thank you, Ben.
Blows my mind.
Thank you very much. Ben actually did a great job of giving you an outline of the project. With it being confidential, there's not a lot we can divulge at this moment. We're only 4 weeks or so before that is, that constraint is withdrawn. Once we start construction, it becomes a matter of public record. So, but an overview is this is going to be the 3rd facility for this customer in the U.S. They are based in Europe. That's about as much as I can say at the moment. And overseas, high-rise automated storage has been around for years. Most of the facilities over there, because of the real estate constraints, are high-rise. And so this building here, if you look at, well, you can't see it over there. This portion here is what we would call the high bay. That is where we have the height variance, and we did do the variance for 160 feet. However, the design height is just about 145. We did a little bit extra room just to make sure that anything changes through final design, we've captured that. So we're a little bit lower than what we got the variance approved for, but that basically is what we call a dark building, in that there is nobody within that space. It is fully automated. There'll be 7 cranes that run from south to north that feed product into their desired spot based on the pull dates, based on the shelf life, and so forth. This entire facility, including the dock, which is a 2-story dock, will be minus 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's all frozen. A typical facility for cold storage, you would have a dock that's 36 degrees. This customer likes to maintain the integrity of the product, and in doing so, they keep that temperature consistent at minus 5 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the facility. All the exterior elements of the building, exterior doors, access ways into adjacent welfare and maintenance space, are all done via airlock, so that you have no infiltration coming from outside or from other spaces within the building. With this building, and specifically with the low technology, you have to have a very tight envelope. We have to go through stringent testing to make sure that envelope does not have any infiltration, so that when they're converting normal oxygen into nitrogen, basically taking the oxygen out of it, getting that to a 16.5% oxygen level so that you cannot ignite flame or spark, that nitrogen is contained within the space and needs to not exfiltrate from within the high bay. The low bay is not low. That is an occupied space. It'll be a double interlock fire protection system within that space. There's very little forklift traffic in this building, really just from the dock to the buffer lanes, which is about a 20-foot straight distance, is all you see from moving product manually or mechanically. The rest is all automated. From the time you unload a truck to the time that product is up in the high bay, matter of minutes. This facility doesn't have auto trailer unloading and loading, but as opposed to a traditional facility where it takes about 45 minutes to an hour, because how these facilities are designed and the efficiency with which they're designed, you can unload a truck within 15 minutes, get it in its buffer lane, it's then going back to where it's being stored. This facility has something new that the other two do not, and it's fairly new to the market in the US, which is an automated case pick for frozen. What that means is that instead of manually taking bulk SKU items, say it's a pallet of ice cream, all the same size, they can automatically case pick it by ID and build pallets to smaller retailers or wholesalers that go outbound. So they'll bring that product out of the high bay, they'll take it to case pick, they'll do all their random picking, repalletize it, put it back in the high bay for outbound shipment at a later date, and so it's fully automated. There's no manual element to it. So they're interesting facilities. They're fun to watch when they're being built, so I invite you all to come by once we're under construction, but it is a very interesting and state-of-the-art facility. From an energy standpoint, about 50% consumption of a traditional facility. We don't go for certifications, but we have a lot of data that shows that they are far more efficient than a traditional warehouse. This warehouse will house 100,000 pallet positions. To give that some scale, a traditional building of 50 feet in height, be a 1 million square foot footprint to house that many pallet positions. So happy to answer any questions you might have about it, but that's just a quick overview of it.
Any members of the commission have a question?
Is it too early to know the number of employees that might be at the facility?
Approximately 150 to 200 total. They'll be on 3 shifts, and so those will be staggered over shifts. But that's about the count for employees. These are, with automated, you hear that it's sometimes a job kill or what have you, but what happens here is it's actually a slightly higher, paying job, higher skill level. It's not more mechanically like a traditional warehouse where you've got Teamsters running around on forklifts. This is, you've got to manage building management systems. You've got to know how the conveyors all work. So there's a bunch of different levels of skill sets required to maintain these facilities and managing them appropriately. So, but yeah, 150 to 200 is their current
Thank you.
count.
Any other questions?
When did you say that this was going to be announced, if it's coming here? When would we know?
Have to get through this week. It could be as early as the next couple weeks. The customer is very big on making this public once it is to that stage. They encourage participation from the governor for groundbreaking and like to get the jurisdiction involved and planning commission and Ben's team and so forth. So there will be a couple events like that as they progress through the project, but we hope in the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay,
Plus or minus.
thank you.
Yep.
Does this customer cater to multiple customers for storage?
Yes, there's an anchor tenant for this particular facility. They may allow capacity for other customers, but right now there is an anchor tenant already established for this facility. An example of their other facilities, their anchor tenant takes anywhere from 60 to 75% of the capacity, and the balance would go to smaller needs.
Any other questions? If anyone else, did you finish?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, we have open up the public hearing now. Okay. Anyone like to come forward and speak? Not seeing any. We'll close the public hearing. And then we will, I will take a motion for docket 20-29.
I'll make a motion for docket 20-29 that we approve the development plan contingent on the following conditions: the TAC comments, stormwater approval, lighting plan, and signage plan.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion. Okay. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Ashley Paddock?
Yes.
John Lassley?
Yep.
Kevin Krulik?
Yes.
Keith Campbell?
Yes.
Brian Tandy?
Yes.
Dan Bashor,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, thank you. Be looking forward to you coming in. Okay, any other business? I don't know of any other. Ben, you have any other? Okay. And if not, you got one more piece of business to do. Adjourn. Do a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
motion?
Yeah, Kevin did.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening, and we're all finished this evening. Thank you.